wanted to talk about some of my mental disorders in a little bit more of a focused way, I guess. Um, Starting from the first one I noticed and leading up. Um, the first one I had that someone pointed out to me, a coworker, was OCD, compulsive, obsessive compulsive disorder. I had no idea what OCD was. When I was growing up, you didn't really talk about mental health issues. Um, it wasn't a thing. You break your arm, you show your arm's broke. It's just you see you got an issue. Uh, in your mind, you don't see that. You could look normal. I mean, there are people with very extensive cases of it that it does show physically. Um, if you look at mental hospitals, where there's some of them are just really bad. Um, my first thing learning about it was at work. Um, I went in and I started doing the compulsions I usually do. Uh, how my OCD works is it's usually based on an incident. So if something happens, say one time I left the door locked, um, I will continuously go back and check the door constantly. I go to bed. Did I lock the door? Get up, go check it. Go back to bed. A couple minutes later, did I lock the door? Go check it. Um, Now you can try to stop, and say I did this quite a bit. Like I locked the door. I know I did. I locked it. But then you just get a dread that comes over you, that a fear that you didn't lock the door, and it gets to a point where you eventually just give up and you go and check the door. Um, in this particular case, when my coworker told me about what I had, uh, from observing what I was doing, it was basically a thing where at one time I forgot to lock my car door. So I would check and make sure my car door was locked continuously. Another thing that happened a little bit later was I didn't shut the door all the way, and the dome light uh, stayed on. So that triggered it because my OCD is kind of like stacking boxes. The first time would be the not locking the door. The next box would be checking the car door because I didn't lock it or didn't shut it. Uh, the third one would be didn't shut it. The dome light didn't come off. So check it. I keep checking those things, making sure that I did them. So uh, I went to work that day like normal, and like normal, I started doing my compulsive behaviors. Um, I would check and make sure the door was locked. I would look up into the window, make sure the dome light was out. Start to walk towards work, stop, turn around, go back, check my door again, check the dorm light again. I did this sometimes five, six, 7 times or more. It depends on how bad it was that day. Um, a coworker who had came in saw me doing this, and when we went to work that day, she had sat down a little bit later, and she said, Raymond, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She said, do you have OCD? And I'm like, what's OCD? And she says, look it up. And so I went on Google and looked it up. And when I read it, it was just like a shock because it was explaining me. uh, all my issues and compulsions that came from OCD um, was there, a lot of them, and the constant checking of things, and stuff needed to be in a certain order, and things like that I just took for granted as just something that, you know, as you know, I did, just one of those behaviors. And for a while, I noticed it started getting worse. Um, it became to a point where I would worry so bad that I didn't do something, and the dread would come over me. Like I was sure I didn't lock my door. I was positive I didn't lock it, even though I checked it 10, 15 times before I left to go to work. I was dead serious. Thought I didn't lock it. My brain was saying you didn't lock it. I was dreading. The dread just kept building and building and building inside me that I didn't lock the door. So I wound up calling my nephew, and I asked him to go check my car, or not car door. I'm sorry, my door, my apartment. And he was like, "What are you talking about? It's locked. Don't worry about it." I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I'm pretty sure it's locked. I'm pretty sure I did lock it. You need to check it for me. You need to check it for me." And finally, he says, "Okay, I'll go check." And so I was about beside myself the entire time waiting for his call back. So eventually, he calls me back and says, "Yeah, I checked, dude. Your door is locked." And that was a weight off. I do stuff like, I sometimes I know one time I left the lights on my car, so I would have to continuously check and make sure my car lights were off. Uh, I left the stove on one time, so I had to check that every morning at least 3, 4, or 5 times before I left to make sure the oven was off. I my How I did it was I would put my hand on each of the burners to make sure the burners were off. After checking to make sure it's off. It says the lights off. Then I put my hand in the oven just to make sure I didn't feel any heat. Um, and then one time my refrigerator door didn't close all the way. I got home from work and saw it. That added another box onto my OCD to check off. So I would open the refrigerator door and close the refrigerator door and push on it to make sure it's closed. I did this 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Freezer door too, same thing. Um, and then I left my keys in the door. Another box went on top that I had to check and make sure my keys were where I always left them. I had to double check each time. So I had a ritual. It got to a point to be a ritual. At night before I went to bed, I checked the door, which I still do. Uh, check my keys, which I still do. Um, check to make sure the refrigerator door and the freezer door is closed. Still do that. Um, and then I would eventually go to bed. But then, more than likely, I would have to get back up, go back, check again, make sure the door was locked, make sure the keys were in the right spot, make sure the oven door was shut, and I mean the oven was shut off, uh, and everything was okay. Um, then go back to bed. This would happen about 4 or 5 times, hopefully, before I finally would fall asleep. And then in the morning before I left for work, and luckily at the job I had at the time was open availability, so you could come in any time. I would go through the rituals. I would make sure the refrigerator was shut. Check it 3 or 4 or 5 times. Check the oven. Make sure the oven was shut off 3 or 4 or 5 times. I got my keys, so I knew I had my keys. Then I would go leave for the day, lock the door, go out to the car, turn around, go back to the door, check it again. It's locked. leave, go back to the car, turn around, go back to the door, check, make sure it's locked, go back, get in, start the car, start to move out, pull out, start to move, start to go forward, stop, get out of my car, go to check the door, get back in my car, drive a little bit more, and sometimes, and go back and check the door again, and finally I would go. But in the back of my mind, I was one. It takes a few minutes, or I'd say, "Oh, did I lock the door? Did I sure Did I really check it?" And then that's when it would get to me at work when I would start to uh, get the dread. I mean, it got to a point the dread over the locked door got to me to a point where I would just get up and walk around and say, "Oh my God, I had to leave, go to the bathroom, and think, I locked the door. I know, I locked the door. I know I did." And I try to convince myself I locked it, and then to get the dread out of my mind that I left it unlocked. And when I was suffering from this OCD, I started thinking back after a while um, that it runs in the family. Because after I was thinking back with my mom, I realized, and I was pretty sure, that she had OCD. Um, because there was things that happened with my mother that I think were hallmarks of being someone with OCD. Um, she would be an extensive cleaner, clean all the time. There was a time we were leaving to visit my sister. She Before we left, she had to stop and go and check and make sure the house was clean. And I would say, "Mom, who cares? I mean, is it the burglars are not going to enjoy a clean house when they break in? Oh, I just gotta make sure it's clean." Okay. Then you'd like say you get something to drink, a soda or something, and you pour it in your glass, you lay it down, and you decide, "Oh, I need to run, go to the bathroom or do something real quick." You go back, glass is gone. She's already took it. Um, Another thing that happened, we had an amazing drought one year. This was back probably 19, early 80s, late 70s. Um, it was so bad the grass was turning brown in the yard. And my mom had a particular date, which is I always thought was odd, that she wanted to mow the grass, and it was usually believe it was Tuesdays. She had to have the grass mowed on Tuesday, and why Tuesday? I have no idea. But Tuesday was her during the spring and summer when the grass started growing and some of the fall was lawn mowing time. That was when you went out and mowed your lawn. And so anyway, like I said, we had a drought one year during the summer. We hadn't had rain for a while, and the grass was turning brown in spots. You could see it. Um, it hadn't even grown even a half an inch in a week. And it was Tuesday. My mom said, "You need to go out and mow the grass." And I was like, "What grass? There isn't any. It's dead. It's dying. There's brown spots. See out there, there's no grass to mow." And my mom said, "No, no, no. It's Tuesday. You gotta go out there and mow that grass." And I'm like, "I'm not mowing the grass. There's no grass to mow. I mean, it's pointless. It's dying." Uh, and she just would not let up. And finally, she says, "Well, I'm gonna go do it. If you're not gonna do it, I'm gonna go mow." Well, my mom's getting up in age, and it was 100, like 100 and something degrees outside. So finally, I just said, okay, fine, I'll mow it. And just as I was starting to get ready to go out and mow the grass, my one sister came by, and my sister must have asked what I was getting ready to do, and she told her I was mowing the grass. And I heard her when I came in. She said, "Mom, the grass doesn't need to be mowed. It's dead. It's dying. We have a drought. There's brown grass up there." And she argued with her. She said, "No, no, it is Tuesday. It's Tuesday. We have to mow the grass on Tuesday." And it was just no way to get out of it. Just no way. She refused to listen. It was pointless to keep talking about it. You're arguing with a brick wall. And I finally got out there. I started mowing the grass. And basically, all I was doing was going up and down in a row, and there was absolutely nothing coming out of the mower. All I did was do it just to appease her. What I didn't know then was OCD, and I was pretty sure that's what it was. Uh, it was maybe a mild form because I've seen extensive forms of OCD. I know the comedian Howie Mandel. I think he talked about it on Oprah. I watched one time about it, suffering from it. I have a friend whose daughter has it really bad, and man, she constantly washes herself to a point where if it's uses so much water. My friend, it drives him nuts because he's she's living with his grandmother, his mom, her grandmother, and she uses up all the water and stuff because she's constantly washing herself. She goes through rituals with wet wipes and all this stuff. When I see her at the store with her mother, she's wearing rubber latex, rubber like the when you wash dishes gloves, the not the clear ones, but the colored ones. She wears gloves wherever she goes, um, and she's really bad. And because I thought I had it bad, and I've seen her, and it's just unbelievable. It is a very hard thing to go with. Some have it so bad that they have to. I've heard of instances. Somebody told me of a guy they knew had to count each of the uh, tiles in the floor whenever he went into the room. And there was another guy told me there was a guy he knew he'd always have to flip the switch so many times before he leave a room. I guess to make sure the lights were off. But I guess as my other mental disorders started to get up worse, the OCD kind of kept some of a back seat. It doesn't give me the gloom and doom and despair when I don't check the door, you know, 100 times. I can check it a few. I'd still get up and check it a few times. I still check my keys a couple times. I'll still check the the door in the car and the car light dome. I do that. Not as much, but I still do it. But I don't have the sense of dread over me uh, like I used to with it. I guess because my other um, mental health issues started to take a more potent uh, uh, significance in my brain. Um, like I remember one time I was going down the road and I could have swore I heard a voice that said, "You left your oven on." I refused to listen to it. Normally, before then, I would have had to turn around and go back home. The gloom and the actual despair of one, thinking I left the drawer dread, not despair, dread that I left the oven on would have had me turn back and go back and check it. But I was able to get through it. Um, I think because mainly it has taken a kind of a back seat to my other problems. um, which I'll go into what I plan on doing is going to the forefront on some of these mental health issues that not only do I suffer with, but others suffer with sometimes a lot worse than I do. Like my friend's daughter with OCD. She has it a lot worse than I ever had it. I think my sister has it. My nephew said she did. Um, but like I said, as my other mental health issues, depression started to rise up, and it started to take more of my life. Where I just didn't want to go anywhere. I used a lot of what at work called FMLA, which you don't get paid for, and that hurt. But I just could not get going. I did not want to leave my apartment. I was, and it's still a struggle. Um, I still get depressed, both especially after my sister passed away. And but anyway, I'll go into more of that on another video. But right now, I just wanted to mainly focus on the OCD part, um, and how people suffer with it. And if if you don't feel the dread, you'll never know what it's like. If people have it and know what I'm talking about, you can comment. The dread of when you don't check something, if you have OCD, and how it just builds and builds and builds until you just cannot deny it, and you go check the door or check the keys or check the oven or that kind of thing. But and I know others who suffer a lot worse. Um, but anyway, that's just going to be my video on OCD tomorrow. Uh, Hopefully, either tomorrow or Thursday. Um, Hopefully, make one on my other issue, which is depression. Uh, I have three of them: OCD, depression, general anxiety disorder. Actually, I think it's chronic depression. I was diagnosed with, and then general anxiety disorder. But I try to want to go a little bit more on what they do to my life, because, like I said, outward you can't see mental health issues. It's not like breaking. When I broke my wrist, and well, actually, I shattered it completely, and it's got metal in it. So like the $6 Million Man, if you remember that show. Except just can't do the cool stuff. But can't lift an engine block. But anyway, it's OCD is something that some people live with, and it is a can be a heavy mental disorder, and like I said, others suffer more than others as far as how bad it can get. Um, Mine is probably low scale compared to some. Like my friend's daughter is probably here's my friend's daughter as far as OCD is um, done. But I think it just, like I said, it's just a mental disorder. It affects everyone a little bit differently, like anything else. But I just want to talk a little bit. Like I said, I don't know if tomorrow, but maybe Thursday, I'll do one on depression and try to go more in depth on how the depression affects me at points. And then we'll go to the big bad, the one that really has me reeling, the Mr. T. Um, that's really given me the hit in the face, and that is the general anxiety disorder, which I haven't had as long. Um, that's I was always a worry wart, but it had some anxiety, but not as bad as it has gotten the last year or so. Um, but that will be. I'll say that for the grand finale about going more into it, just so that I can kind of break them off into different videos. But again, thank you for watching. If you're watching this, thank you. If you sub, thank you. Like I said, this is just a talking point, And if you suffer from these mental health disorders, you're not alone. There's help. I mean, try talking to a therapist. Try talking to a psychiatrist. I do both. My only hang up is I can't, for some reason, the antidepressants. One of them gave me such a bad time that I just had to stop taking it, and now I'm kind of wary of any antidepressants. Um, but I'll discuss more on that in the depression one. But for the OCD one, that's my take on it, my experience with it, and what I still have, but not as bad. Um, but anyway, thank you for watching. Comments, good or bad, doesn't matter. I take them. I'm an old man. How many websites in the 90s, back when the internet started, and boy, did I get critiqued. I Let me tell you, some lady, I made a profile and put a picture up on the old, it's called web chat broadcasting system, and I think it was either a gal or a guy. I think it was a gal. She went on a long, long story about how ugly I am and why I put my picture on this thing being as ugly as I am. I mean, it wasn't just like you're ugly or you don't look good, or you're fat, or you're whatever. She actually went into a book. I was like, holy crap! You spent that much time just to tell me how unattractive I am. That is some general. I don't like you. How can you? Never met me. Didn't know. Had no idea who I was. But apparently, I knew enough that from my looking at my picture, she could tell my entire history, that how ugly I was, and I mean, I should have saved it. It was laughable. I was like, I looked at it, and I says, I could not believe this. But I'm going down a rabbit hole, aren't I? But anyway, um, everyone that watches this, I hope you have a blessed day, and thank you for watching again, and I appreciate it. And like I said, I try to do this to help myself a little bit, to get it out there. I know others have too. I've seen the videos. Um, Mental health is something that's hard to deal with, and it still has a stigma attached to it, which is hard. But anyway, have a good day and a blessed one. And I will talk to you later, and it will be on the issues with depression. Thank you, and good night.